Hello guys, so our next lecturer is Mike Borsey, a multi-award winning classical actor, voice actor, and performance capture artist. You have heard his voice in such titles as Star Wars, Battlefront 2, The Division 2, Control, Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and Star Citizen. And today he's going to tell us more about life of a voice actor. Giving you the floor.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Mike Bodie, and I will be giving a talk today, which is called "Again but Better." So, as I was as said, my name is Mike Bodie. I work as a voice actor. I trained at a drama school in London called Lambda. I do lots of different things. I do mocap and performance capture. I work on stage. I work on film as well. I also have done a bunch of games. I've worked on about 70 titles as a voice actor. These are some of the more recognizable ones, if you will. A whole bunch of them. Um, and then I was also a bunch of games I can't talk about because of NDAs. Um, I just can't because of contracts. I also work as a voice director, telling actors what to do, as one does. And I also work as a proofreader and script editor for games as well, for dialogue and so on and so forth, making sure things sound fluent and cohesive and consistent. So, why do we have voice actors in games to begin with? Well, for me, sound is the first sense. If you're a baby in the womb, you can't really use your eyes because there's no light. You can't see anything. You don't really know what you're touching because you don't really know that you have arms and appendages. I mean, this is why we have mittens for babies so they don't scratch themselves when they're flailing their arms around. They don't really know what food or taste is because they're not using their tongues. Um, so sound is kind of the only thing that they're able to kind of sense whether they have context or not. It's all sound vibrations. Um, Having vocal audio in a game tends to increase the perceived production value of the game. And I know it's crazy, but it's true. But there are people who pretend to be other people, such as this guy. They're called actors. I'm the dude playing the dude disguised as another dude. This is actually a GIF. I only found out that it doesn't run, but that's fine. It's still silly. So a player's experience with sound and audio tends to be somewhat sort of 50-50, and then it's a balancing act to kind of achieve an experience that's worth sort of remembering. Um, the player will play a character. Let's say they're playing a third person game. Um, they will be able to see the character design, the environment, the lighting, the ambiance, the effects, the animation. But then all of that doesn't have the same kind of context, the same kind of immersive experience if you remove the audio from it. And there's also a general expectation of what you see should have a certain sound, if you will. So you have an expectation that when you see, say, a Lamborghini, you expect it to make loud Lamborghini noises and sound like a Lamborghini. It makes you go, ooh, it's very loud and boomy. So, for example, we all know who this is. I hope you do. If you're not, you've been living under a rock. Simply from the visuals alone, we can interpret a lot of different things. He's got blood on his hands. He's got a crossbow in one hand, two swords on his back, scars on his face. He's covered in armor. He's got a meat hook on the side. He looks like a guy that if you didn't know him, you might not want to meet him down an alley in the dark at night. So we kind of have an expectation of what we think he's going to sound like before he says anything. Now, suddenly all of this visual information that we receive from a character, or it could be an environment or a building or what you will, all of the visual information we receive, we already have a subconscious expectation of what it's supposed to sound like. But suddenly, if Mr. Geralt of Rivia sounds like he's from Family Guy, it kind of betrays all the stuff. You got a monster I can slay? Lois. This, we have a certain expectation, but if he sounds like this, all of the visual stuff that we get from here doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It can be very immersion breaking when the visual elements of the game don't match the audio elements. And as we all know, if anybody who works in audio gets shafted to the end. So, how do you get voiceover? There's two ways of doing it. You can outsource to an outsourcing audio company, and they will provide if you provide them the scripts and all the information about the game that you need to find actors and who you're looking for. They will cast the actors, record them, handle all the dialogue, um, do post-processing, so on and so forth, and provide you with the whole kind of package. The alternative way of doing it is doing it yourself. If you have a dedicated audio team or within your company, whether you're an indie developer or whatever, you can do it yourself. It's a little bit trickier, and you'll be spending more time having to handle all the voice actors, source the casting, and handle the dialogue and all of that. But it's entirely doable. For myself, I've worked in both ways, where I have recorded from my studio here for a company wherever they're based in the world, or I'm asked to go into a studio, say in London or in Germany or whatever, to record for a game there. Sometimes they might do a remote session where they connect in from here and I connect to the studio wherever they're recording, and that's how we do it. Both ways work for me. I personally have no preference. So, getting a VO, as I mentioned, with an outsourcing company, they'll source the voiceovers, they'll do the casting, general admin, provide the recording facilities, organize everything for you. When you do it yourself, you source all the voiceovers. Hopefully, the voiceovers you're getting have their own studios and their own setups, or they might go and hire one for the day, etc. And then your audio team will deal with more of the post-production on it. Here are a few outsourcing audio companies that are based in the UK that generally handle English language and some other languages as well. If you want, you are welcome to screenshot this if you need to use it later. I'll wait a second while you remember what the hotkey is for the screenshots. You've remembered. Good. Wonderful. I'm going to move on. Obviously, if you want to know, you're also free to email me at the end, and you'll see my details at the end of the talk. So let's say you're going to do it yourself. How do you find the voice actors? You need voice actors for your game, and you don't know where to get them. So one of the ways you can do it is recommendations. We all know, if we're working in the games industry, we probably have friends or colleagues who also work in the games industry. Let's say you go, right, I need to find a voice actor, and I have a friend who works at this company. The last game they worked on used voice actors. Maybe I'll drop him a line and say, hey, could you put us in contact with the people you used for your game? Because we quite like what they did, and we want to audition them for the project. So recommendations are always ideal, because if a developer recommends a voice actor they worked with to another developer, chances are that voice actor was easy to work with, professional, and very good at their job, so they can probably do all that again. Another way of doing it is contacting voice agents. Different countries have different setups, how they handle and represent voice talent and actors, and how they go about finding and seeking and providing work and opportunities for them to audition. So, for example, in the UK and the US, you can contact a voice agency and say, hi, we have a project. This is our game. We won't need to have these actors, or we're looking for actors who can play these parts. Could you recommend some people for us for us to record, and then you would work out the details from there. Another way of doing it is, maybe you've played a game and you really, really like a voice actor in it. You can find them online. You can find them on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or what you will. You can DM them asking if they'd like to work together, or maybe you go to imdb.com and find out who their agent is and contact their agent. Maybe you really like Nolan North and you want to work with Nolan North. He'll probably be expensive because he's Nolan North. But you can also contact his agent and say, hi, we'd love for him to be in this game or audition for this game, et cetera, et cetera. You work out the details. You can also find voice actors at conferences. Prior to COVID, I used to go to a lot of the conferences all around Europe, and it's lots of fun. I always enjoy going to conferences, and I wish I could go to more in person, but this is horrible pandemic going on. There are often voice actors who go to conferences who will hand out the cards, speak to developers going, hi, I'm a voice actor. If you need anything, let me know. Or they play your game and go, hey, I'd love to provide, I don't know, what do you call it? Oh, I've lost my train of thought now. Choo-choo, where is it? Placeholder audio. Maybe they might want to offer placeholder audio with the chance to then potentially audition for a part if you think they might be suited for it. But conferences are great places to find actors. Twitter is somewhat of a last resort, if you will. This GIF is a bunch of piranhas attacking a fish and ripping it apart. putting onto Twitter, I have an audition looking for voice actors. I guarantee within a few hours, you will be inundated with literal hundreds of auditions and links and direct messages, so on and so forth. You can find voice actors on Twitter. There are big companies like Warframe, for example, by Digital Extremes in Canada, that source their actors from Twitter. Not everybody who submits, of course, is always good or professional. Voice acting is a very frictionless industry and a frictionless place to work, that you can buy a crappy microphone on Amazon and throw a duvet or a blanket over your head and call yourself a voice actor. It doesn't mean you're good or competent or experienced. It just means you made some purchases on Amazon. But unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Always vet your actors before you hire them and give them money. Great. So you now have a source of actors, or you have a place to get them, and you're not quite sure what to do with them now. You can cast your actors that you want for your game quite early on. That is a potential thing that can be done. Doesn't have to be done last minute. The benefit of casting actors early is that you get the chance to work with them. You get the chance to, if they're up for it, to try out text before it makes it into the game and say, hey, could you send us a demo of this? We want to see if this kind of style of writing or this character suits you, so that we can find, we quite like working with you as a person, as an actor. You're very competent, professional, and fun to be around, hopefully. And we want to see how you work with this text. You can cast them early. What tends to happen sometimes is that voice actors are dropped in right at the end of a project, and it can be like, the developer will have been working on the project for years, but the actor will probably only work on the game for maybe an hour or two if they're like an NPC or a secondary character, or maybe a handful of hours if they're a lead character. So they have to take years and years of a company working together and all of the exposure to that project and the story and what the game's about, and condense it down. Now, granted, that's a skill that we as actors do, but it's not always easy. And sometimes you have to come back and do re-records and so on and so forth. But that happens. And also, it's okay to recast actors if you find that you go, actually, our character has changed completely, and we want somebody who can portray this kind of character instead. I was working for 3 years on a project as a lead, and then they changed the actor because suddenly my character grew about 8 inches and put on about 30 pounds of muscle and sounded really kind of big and aggressive. And the character that I was playing was not that, even though I probably could have played that. But that was their choice. Anyway, we'll get over it. I swear, probably we'll get over it. I'm not bitter. I jest. Oh, again, this is a video it's supposed to play, but it's not. Don't worry about it. So this leads into um, the idea that not every voice actor will look like the character that they sound like. Again, the visuals don't always match the audio, particularly with people. Hence the phrase, they've got a face only a mother could love, or a face for radio. They sound good, but look like a truck. Or they maybe sound terrible, but they're incredibly handsome or beautiful, whatever. It's easy to go, oh, they look like the character, but they might not sound like it. But they sound kind of like it, but they're not that good of a performer. But you're not always going to see their face. So, for example, Jason Hightower on the right here plays Jackie Wells in Cyberpunk in the English language version. Now, granted, if I love this photo because it's very striking, almost comedic. Now, granted, if I said, do I think this guy can play the character without hearing him, I might go, maybe not. This isn't the kind of vibe and the kind of feel of the character that we're going for. We're going for something a bit more rugged and tough looking and a bit more dark and moody, whereas this headshot doesn't always convey that. However, Jason Hightower in the English version of Cyberpunk does an amazing job as Jackie Wells, and he's got the absolute perfect voice for it. Now, granted, this is a case of the visuals not always matching the audio, so it's good to not cast somebody based on what they look like, but based on what they sound like. It's just acting, right? So this is a question that always comes up, and a thing that that's always a point of contention. Because you're a film actor, it doesn't mean you can be a voice actor. Because you're a voice actor, doesn't mean you can be a stage actor. Because you're a stage actor, doesn't mean you can be a film actor. Each format and each technical medium of performance is different. Film, stage, voiceover, mocap, and performance capture are 4.5 different performance mediums. When I was training at drama school, we were predominantly working on classical theater, classical text, and then we started doing film. And suddenly we used to have all of this space around us to be able to move and to look up and down and all this kind of thing. But suddenly the stage becomes this big, or however big. And so then we had to take all of our performance skills and put them into a different format. Now, for example, with film actors will be used to working from the tops of their head to the bottom of their feet. And they'll have costume and they'll have an environment and they'll have other people around them and they'll be on location. And those are all really useful things. Stage actors will have the costume and they'll be able to have a lot of space to move around and have more freedom of movement. Voice actors are essentially acting with this from kind of the nasal cavity down to the sternum. We don't have costumes. We sometimes don't even have visual references of what somebody looks like. We just have words. We don't often have the whole script, so we have to do the most of it what we can. Again, it's saying like, well, if you're a voice actor or a stage actor or a screen actor, then, you're just an actor. Says, yes, you do perform and you do use your core skill of acting, but you have to format it to separate mediums in order to get the most out of your performance in the medium that it's being used in. That's like saying, well, I'll just get my dentist to do heart surgery because, well, they're a doctor. It's like, yeah, they're a dentist, not a cardiologist, even though they both have doctor in front of their name. You don't want your dentist doing your heart surgery. Come on. So here's an example. So, and again, I've worked in film, TV, stage, mocap, and voiceover. So I've worked in all of these mediums. So, for example, if I'm working on a piece of television, for example, I might have the whole script for the entire episode a month or longer before. Now, granted, yes, the script might change on the day, but I have almost all of the entire script that I'm going to do. So I have all of the context of what my character is going to be doing in that piece. So I've got a whole month with it. On stage, I've got the entire play. If I'm doing Cat on a Hot Tin Roof by Tennessee Williams, I'm not just going to get my character's scenes. I'm going to get the whole play so I can understand the context and the journey and the references and so on and so forth. If I'm working on a mocap shoot, sometimes I'll get the whole script. If I'm doing performance capture, I'll get the whole script ahead of time, a bit like a film script, if you will. So I'll have time to work on that. And again, however, that might change on the day. In voiceover, if I'm lucky, I'll get the script ahead of time. I won't, however, get the full script. I won't, granted, anybody who's worked in big narrative games will know that you can't, some of the really big narrative projects are hundreds of thousands of words long. And some of them might not actually be useful narrative information. It might just be barks, move, get down, grenade, watch out. Thanks, buddy. I'll see you there. It's like, well, those are all very context-based, not narrative-based. So you kind of have to tailor pick with what you're doing. You're reliant on the client and the director to tell you what you're doing with it. Rehearsal time on a film set, I might have a whole day if it's a big sequence. I might have a couple weeks if it's a huge sequence. I might have a few minutes to go through stuff. With a stage play, you're looking at 3-4 weeks. That's pretty standard. Mocap, I might have a few minutes. Again, if it's a really big sequence, I might have a few days or a day. With voiceover, I've got maybe about 60 seconds. Here's the line. Read it so you get used to the words being in your mouth. Now say it and perform. We're recording. It's quite a bit, 1 minute or so compared to like weeks or days or hours. It's a big difference. Time between takes on a film set, again, you might have a few minutes. On stage, you don't. You just go again. A few seconds in mocap and a few seconds in voiceover. Hi, great. That was a wonderful take. Let's go again. More energy, more pace. All right, boom. Start again. The work session for a film set, I'm going to be on there. I might be on set for 16 hours a day, and then I go home, go to sleep, go back for another 16 hours. With stage, you're obviously rehearsing 8 hours a day, and the show itself might be 2-3 hours, plus you get an hour or so either side for when you get to the theater and then leave the theater. Mocap, again, 8-9 hours. For a work session voiceover, you're looking at a max of 4 hours, maybe 1 hour. Information ahead of time, I don't get barely get anything with voiceover. It's great if you can give more information to the actors because then they can do their job better. They have time to let the information sift and sit and think about it. And again, in stage, film, TV, they can get as much as they want and as much as you can provide. On the same with mocap and performance capture. Alrighty, so you've now found some actors. Your best choice as far as hiring actors go, it's always great to give somebody an opportunity. If they give a really good audition, you chatted with them, they seem like a nice person, they seem competent and professional, they've got a good studio set up. Let's say you've hired them to use their studio, or maybe you've brought them into a studio that you've hired through an outsourcing company. it's always good to give people opportunities if you feel that obviously their audition is good. If they don't have a whole lot of experience and somebody else gave an equally good audition, but they have more experience in games, that's more useful. It is, for example, if I bring a film actor in to do some voiceover for me, and I say, okay, this line here is an allied NPC response to a player-driven character, they're probably not going to have any idea what that is. But if you are a voiceover who has at least worked on games, you don't always have to be a gamer yourself. The voice actor, the actor doesn't have to be a gamer, but there's a higher chance that the voiceover who's worked on games before will understand that thing, that allied NPC response to a player-driven character. And that line might be understood, taking point alpha. Like the actor who doesn't know what that is might go, so what's my motivation about this line? Well, the character really wants to take point alpha because that's their motivation. Like it's a lot of these lines, something like that is throwaway, forgettable. You want to do it so that it can be passed over, understood, and not be annoying. And so it's essentially easier to hire actors who have voice actors who have game experience, whether they're gamers or not, but having game experience prior to bringing them in is useful. Straight up voiceovers, people who work on, say, e-learning, corporate videos, commercial, they might not have the acting skill. They might say, well, I had to perform one time in a commercial. I had to act sort of sad. It's like, okay, but that's not the same as somebody who is a voice actor or who is a screen or stage actor who has voice training or vocal training. Um, Voiceovers and voice actors are two different things, if you will. It's like being, you can be a delivery driver or you can be an F1 driver. Both require driving, but one is a bit more specific than the other. Not to take a crap on voiceovers, but like, I'm sure you get what I mean. Great. You have now found the voice actors, and you found the people you want to use. Ask for auditions. So this clip is a GIF, and it's from Jurassic Park, and it's the bit where he goes, "Clever girl," and the raptor comes out and then eats him. Um, the raptor found the man, found you. It's okay to ask actors. Let's say you got 100 actors. I mean, that's a lot for for 10, 15 parts. You can have them do one round of auditioning, and then you pick 10, 15 for each part that, or five from each part that you like. Then you go, okay, so now we've whittled it from 10 actors down to 5. You then have those 5 actors do another round of auditioning, and maybe you whittle it down to 2 or 3. And then you have them do another round of auditioning. Maybe the script is a bit longer. It's okay to ask actors to do multiple rounds of auditioning. This is very common in theater and film, where they'll have multiple rounds of auditioning before being asked to do a part. I once heard of a client with my agent was asked to do 13 rounds of a stage audition. I think it was for Book of Mormon, the musical in New York. There's 13 rounds of auditioning over the course of a year and a half before they finally cast somebody else. You didn't get the job, but like it happens. If you're worried about using scripts that contains information which might reveal the title of the game in your auditions, change the words. So if you are you're working, let's say you're working on a new Marvel franchise. Now, obviously, you don't want to let the person who's auditioning know that, oh, Captain America, watch out, there comes a Hydra soldier. You might change that to, look out, Lieutenant Sudan, there comes a Chimera warrior. That's a terrible example. Don't use that. You can change the information that's in the script in order to make it more vague, so that you can just have them focus on the performance as opposed to going, oh, this is this franchise, I know how I'm going to do this. Maybe you want to tell them, in which case you probably have to have them sign an MDA to do that. You can also use scripts that are not a part of your the game at all. If you're not sure about an actor, particularly if you're going to be working with them for a long time, chat to them over Skype or Zoom, get to know them. Nobody wants to hire an actor who's a jerk, because then it's like, well, they're a jerk, but we paid them already. And if we get rid of them, then we have to record it again and pay more money, etc. It's really useful to not have cameras on during a voice casting. Every time that I've ever done a voice casting where they wanted the camera on, I didn't get the job. Every audition where they said, oh, let's have the camera on, and then I'll go, oh, sorry, I'm just going to cut the camera to clear up the bandwidth, and then I'll do the performance. So then suddenly they're not distracted by my face moving, and they can just listen to the audio. Every time I've done that, I've gotten the job. Unless you're obviously doing like a live Zoom audition over a Zoom audition for mocap or performance capture where you have to see somebody. If you're just doing voiceover, just cut the camera, have them cut the camera, and just listen to what they're doing, because otherwise you're going to have what you're seeing on screen influence what you're hearing. And again, you want to be able to cast a person for a character based on what they sound like, not what they look like. Let the actors know ahead of time if they're doing a session about anything that might be sensitive, whether it has to do with sexuality, religion, politics, nationalism, extreme violence, etc. Just say, hey, by the way, we have to do a scene where your character is being violently killed, and you got to do lots of screaming. Are you okay with that? Just check with it. They might not be happy with some of the content, in which case you have to then sort that out. But just let them know ahead of time instead of surprising them with it, because you might find out that they go, actually, I'm really not okay with that. I don't want to record that. And then you're left in a situation where you don't get what you need from the voiceover. This is always a point of contention. If you need to cast an actor from a certain background or of a certain nationality or to have a certain accent, you can find them. The internet and the world is big enough where you can find that actor from that specific place. And I've put 2 examples down. There's a website called MENA Arts, which stands for Middle East North African Arts. It is a site in the UK that if you are looking for actors whose heritage or ethnicity is from the Middle East or North Africa, they have profiles on there. And you can even go as far as looking for voice actors with a home studio. And you can contact them, ask them, because your character is from Egypt, or they're from Morocco, or they're from Saudi, and you need an English-speaking Saudi actor because your character is Saudi, if you will. There's also the Persons of Global Majority voiceover list, which is a global list for people from all different backgrounds. It's a great place to find characters if you're looking for a very specific ethnicity. It's lazy casting if you go, well, we need someone to play this character and they're from this country, but we don't know any actors from that country. You can find them. You might take a little longer, but you can find them. You don't want to be accused of whitewashing. Let's say you have an English speaker, but you want, let's say you hire somebody from Texas in the US, and you want them to put on a Scottish accent as though they sound like they're from Edinburgh in Scotland. You got a couple of ways of going about it. You can either hire an actor from Edinburgh in Scotland who will then do an authentic accent, or you can find somebody to go, hey, are you Scottish? Can you check this accent? Does it sound okay? And let them know what they think. A lot of actors will say, yes, my accent is really good, or it's perfect, or it's flawless, or I know how to do this accent. And then they do it, and it's actually not accurate. That happens a lot. If you're not sure if they're talking out their butt about the authenticity of their voice or their accent, have them record a demo. Have them record some text in that accent, have somebody check it, and then if they go, actually, this accent's not all that good. And if you want to work with them on something else, keep them for another character, or say, actually, it's not going to work out. We pick somebody else. But the last thing you want to do is have somebody go, oh, yeah, I can do the accent, particularly if English is not your first language and you can't tell the difference between accents. Don't rely on the actor going, oh, yeah, I'm perfect. Get them to prove it. Don't verify. Don't just trust. To hell with English. English is a silly language, and I'll be the first to say that. Within English, accents will denote nationality. So granted, yes, in Germany, I grew up in Germany as a kid, so ich kann Deutsch sprechen, I can speak German. Within Germany, for example, there are different accents within Germany, in the same that there are in Austria and in Switzerland. You have Swiss German versus Hochdeutsch, High German. Within English, an accent will denote an entirely separate nationality. And you do get this with some other languages as well, like German, for example. Somebody who sounds Australian is probably from Australia. Somebody who sounds American is probably American. Somebody who sounds like they are from the north of England is probably from England or the UK. Within each country, obviously, there are regional different accents, and different accents will connotate and denote different levels of education, different levels of income, their culture, their beliefs, so on and so forth. And these things are important. I once worked on a game. It was set in like the 13th century, and I was playing a character who was from a 13th century European country, and I was doing my best accent of that country. And then suddenly, one of the other characters in the scene is American and sounds like a used car salesman. I was doing my accent, saying, "Careful, we have to be aware that the enemy is getting close." And then this other character shows up, like, "My lord, the enemy is at our gates. We must get the cavalry." And it's like, why is there an American man in the middle of 13th century Poland? This doesn't make sense. Accents are important. Mixing accents doesn't always make sense unless you're like in a sci-fi, and then it can be the future where everybody sounds like they're from everywhere. Um, yeah. What else? Okay, great. So you've hired your actor, you found who you want to use. They said they have a professional studio. What they actually mean is they have a USB mic with a blanket over their head. Have them send a demo of their studio to see if it sounds good. Most microphones will do the job. Not all of them, but most are pretty good. Have them whisper, have them shout, have them do projected lines, have them do let them see what the room sounds like when they're not speaking. All of that, just to check that the sound quality they're going to send and the quality of the audio will be good for you. You might have to fix it, you might have to adjust it. That always happens, but you don't want someone like recording in the middle of their garage and going, well, this should be fine because I have a microphone and I hung a blanket over the rafters. Just have them do a check. If any actor worth their salt is going to go, yeah, that's fine, I'll send you a clip of my studio. As you can probably guess, the one on the right here with all the lights and the screen and the chair and all that, that's the one I'm currently in right now. What you probably won't guess is the one on the left was my third booth. It was in a closet. I stuffed it with with foam. I was reading scripts off an iPad that I'd hung up, and I stuck my feet under the table and closed the doors behind me. And if you can see on the door on the very bottom right, I put some foam there as well. It worked, and I never turned my camera on. And I always said, "I've got my recording studio. Let's do some acting." But obviously, it looks kind of crap. It did the job, but eventually, I wanted a professional studio, which is what I have, which is what we have in the picture on the right. So always have your actors do checks to make sure that that is all good, that the studios are good. Here's the law of audio: you get what you pay for. I'm going to talk about money stuff. Within English language voiceover in the UK and the US, you're looking at between $200 and $250 pounds euros per hour. You can get about 800 to 1,200 words in per hour, sometimes 1,500. The higher the amount is generally based on how easy the text is and how experienced the actor is. If you go to an outsourcing company, they'll have their own set pay structures. If your cast is remote and you're doing it DIY yourself, you might have to negotiate with each actor as far as their rates go. If an actor declines a rate of pay based on the budget that you give them, don't be upset. They might be busy, or that just might be how they do business. They just don't want to work for that. What else? There's a thing called buyouts. So in music, every time a song is played on the radio, that musician will get a small amount of money every time that's played. Within TV, if you work on a TV show, like Friends, for example, or Big Bang Theory, every time that show is shown after it's ended, you get what's called a residual payment. So that network that's showing that show will have to pay the production company, which will then pay the actors a portion of the fees to run that show at that time. With voiceover, because voiceover for games is quite new, those kind of traditional residual pay structures don't exactly exist yet. I know in the US and SAG they're trying to do that, but it hasn't really worked out all that well. So legally, at least in the UK, I don't know, it's different in every country. If I record a voice for your game for a character, and then you take that voiceover, you stick it in your game, you sell the game, you make a profit. Without a buyout, you technically cannot make profit on that because you need to be able to secure a licensing fee for that actor so that their voice can be used to help generate profit. So what would happen is, let's say I go in for a game, I record for an hour, I get paid for the session fee, and then if they want to use my voice in that game and then sell the game, I will need a buyout or a licensing fee in order for my voice to be used in that game to make profit for the developer. It's the law. It's a compliancy thing. Depending on how you want to break it down, maybe you have a slightly higher session fee, which is inclusive of a buyout, because you know you're going to be getting that actor in a few times. It's entirely dependent on the actor and how you want to arrange it. But in some form of writing within the contract, you have to negotiate going, we will pay you this amount, and this separate amount over here will be a one-time, one-fee buyout license. You don't pay it every session. You just pay it once to secure the entire use of all of that audio in that project. So it's not like you go, okay, pay me the session fee and also the buyout for every time I come in. No, buyouts are one-off fees. You pay them once done. You can use the voiceover however you want and however you've agreed to. If you want to, where it gets tricky is if you want to do, say, like a promotion or a trailer, you would have to pay a separate fee for that because that particular trailer voice might not be used in the game. If you're using, obviously, voiceover in the game, that will then be used as gameplay footage for the trailer. That's different. That a buyout will usually cover that. But if you want to use the session that's supposed to be recording voiceover for just the game and just a trailer, you will have to have a separate fee for that because that voiceover in that trailer probably won't make it into the game. It'll be entirely a separate thing. You have to negotiate usage on that. It's like a commercial. Sometimes you might want to hire actors from a different country and bring them to your country to have them work. Keep in mind that you will have to budget for those things like work and travel visas, accommodation, per diems, being on location. Also, things like if you're doing motion capture, you might have to pay to use their likeness if you want to use their face in the game. Again, that would come down to a buyout fee to use their face as the character, so on and so forth. Maybe you want to workshop something. Maybe you want to do a table read of the script before you actually record it on the day. Obviously, that's taking up the actor's time, so you'll have to pay them for that and come to an agreed fee of how you want to do that. As an actor myself, I'm unemployed about 95% of the year. I will work on a game for maybe an hour, and the pay from that will probably set me up for a week or two. But then again, I'm still unemployed the other 23 hours of that day. I spend a lot of money on equipment, on licensing for software, for my for voiceover, for going to conferences, for having to pay for the flights. Like I'm planning on going to Gamescom this year, so I need to pay for an Airbnb, my ticket, my food, and my flight to get over there. But that's all coming out of my business and my money. Fortunately, a lot of it's tax deductible. But those are not things. Those are things that I'm investing for myself to then hopefully find additional work. But there's a lot of things that as an actor, I'm unemployed most of the year technically, like because I'm self-employed and freelance. It's very rare. I don't think there are like voice actors who work 9 to 5 at a company. It just doesn't happen. It would be great, but I like being able to take a nap and not have my boss yell at me. What are you doing? Napping. Fine. I am the CEO and janitor. I make my coffee and then I clean it up. Don't assume an actor knows what you're talking about. If they need to have information in order to perform a line better, give them the information. If you're not sure about giving them the information because it might be sensitive, even if it's in an audition, have them sign an NDA. That means that you can give them the information and that they're saying to you, okay, I won't go on social media and tell everybody about this game and what it's about and leak a bunch of information. It's useful to have the writer in the room when you're doing voice sessions because the writer will have knowledge of the entire script. The voice director might not. And it's useful to have the writer to give context to lines so that the actor can take that information, process it, and then perform it. If we're not told it, we got no idea what's going on. Again, you've been working on the project for years, and I've just shown up 10 minutes ago. That's like, I don't know what this game is. I worked on Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I had no idea what game it was until they showed me the trailer for it. And they went, oh, well, here's a trailer for this project. And I went, well, that's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And they went, well, how did you know that? It's like, well, I'm not an idiot. I play games. I know that that's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Again, like if you can't tell them something, have them sign an NDA or show them references or have vocal reference. If you go, you're auditioning for this character and we need you to have we need you to do a character who sounds like this. Have those references and links ready for them to use. This is an example of how you could set up a script. I have some free stuff on my website, mikebodie.net. We have things such as the line number, the file ID, what's happening in it, a description of the scene, the character who's speaking, the original text, the proofread text, particularly if English isn't your first language. This kind of format for a script is really useful. You can organize what you want to show the actors, so on and so forth. This is a blank VO text template. You can find it on my website, mikebodie.net. Here is an example of, this is actually supposed to be one page, but I've cut it in half just to make it accessible on the screen here. So you might have the character's name, their race, their age, or what their vocal print is. They might be 40, but they sound 20. You might describe what their voice sounds like, any vocal references, how they move. Maybe they have a broken leg. So every time, maybe there's a scene where the character sits down. So you want to have the actor make a sound of as they sit down because that character has a broken leg. What's their behavior like? And then you have the demo lines that you want the actor to record. You've got 5 lines here. You tell them you have the line down there, and then you give them the scene description to give context to the line, and you let the actor go do their thing. This is also available on my website, mikebodie.net. It's in the top right where it says resources. I checked it the other day. It still works. So feel free to take that for free. That's on the house. Yeah, it's free. Let's say you're working on an amazing MMORPG, and you want to and you have some wonderful words to describe your wonderful world, or you're working in the game is not the English is your second language, and you're working with the project, and let's say they have to say lots of words that are in another language, like German or maybe Polish or what you will. Um, the voice actor will not know how to say those. Generally, they won't. Fortunately, for example, in my case, I speak German, so I can say German words without a problem. But maybe they've never even left the country of where they're from in the UK or New Zealand, Australia, America, or whatever. You have to provide the pronunciation list. Otherwise, you will risk getting multiple actors saying the same word multiple different ways, or you'll have them say it incorrectly. Or maybe you've created a wonderful fantasy world with lots of fantasy names. Have a unified pronunciation guide, record them ahead of time. It doesn't matter if you do it on your phone or on your computer. Just have that pronunciation of how you want it said available ahead of time to play back to the actor of how you want it said. Otherwise, it's going to be inconsistent, and that inconsistency just shows lack of attention to detail, and the actor looks stupid. Everybody looks bad when it's not consistent. So record a master list of all of those words and have that ready for the actor in case they ask for it. We appreciate, obviously, everybody appreciates you're on a time limit when you got to record stuff without, you don't want to go over budget. Let's say you budgeted for an hour and it's starting to and it looks like it might go into a second hour. That might be a directing problem. That might be a budget or management problem. That might be an actor problem. There's all kinds of reasons. Sometimes in emotionally difficult scenes, the actor needs a second or two just to get the emotions and stuff flowing. People can't just cry on the spot. There are some who can do that, but it's quite rare. It's better for them to get it right than to just get something, because the chances then you'll then have to book another hour, because voiceover sessions are always booked at 1 hour minimums. There is no half-hour booking. That doesn't exist, at least not in the industry. That would probably be a personal preference, but they're always generally 1 hour. Get it done right. Don't just get something, unless you know that you're going to have to record it again later, in which case you need it for placeholder or whatever. But take the time to get it done right. You'll save yourself a lot of time and money later. Screaming and dying and being set on fire and being electrocuted, and having to perform all of those with your voice is difficult. Every time I go and do a screamy, shouty, "Oh no, I've lost my leg," dying and stuff, my voice always hurts. There's no way to get around it. There's a way, the better you are at it, you can minimize the damage, but it always happens. Never start a session by doing all of your screams and deaths, because then when you have to get to your sensitive, dramatic monologues, everything's going to sound like it's broken and damaged. Better to do the dramatic monologues first and then ruin yourself afterwards near the end of the session with your shouts and screams and stuff. Also, don't do back-to-back sessions. So let's say you do a screaming session on a Monday, and then you want to come in Tuesday and do your dramatic monologues. The voice is still going to be damaged from the day before. It's better to give a day or so to let the voice heal, or maybe do the stuff at the end of the week, the monologues at the end of the week, or do them at the beginning of the week and then do the shouting at the end, so they have the weekend to recover. A damaged voice will get recorded. Like, you can't sort of pretend to be undamaged in the voice. That sound will get recorded. So it's always good to make sure that give people time to do that, to recover. Yay, you've recorded your game and everything is wonderful. Keep in contact with your actors. If you like them, follow them on Twitter, follow them on Instagram or Facebook, friend them, or whatever you want to do. On LinkedIn, that's great. When you're able to talk about the game, tell the actors, because then those actors can then talk about your game and then tell everybody on their platform. Let's say they've got 10,000 followers on Twitter or Instagram. They can go, "Hey, I'm working on this amazing game. I've just been told by the developers that I can talk about it." That's then 10,000 people who might not have known about your game, but now do, because their favorite actor is in that game. It helps with marketing and such. Send them merch. if you have it, if it's not too expensive, because then they can go, oh my God, guys, I just worked on this wonderful project and I got this really great merch from this company. Send them a Steam code, GOG code, any kind of game code, whether it's on PlayStation, Xbox, or on PC, because then if they're also a streamer, they can then stream the game and show their game off, and then your game is getting exposure that is essentially free, if you will. And then those actors can also then take their footage from the game or their scenes and then post them around saying, hey guys, I got some footage from my game. Here's me in this scene. I had a really great time working with this developer. Definitely check out the game. Here's my scene. Credit the actors for their work, whether they're a voiceover or a voice actor or a motion capture performer. Ask them how they want their name spelt. Legally, my name is Michael Bodie, but recently I've changed it. I put everything down as Mike Bodie because it sounds better. Hi, Mike Bodie, attorney at law. I'm not an attorney. Invite them to speak about your game. Let's say you're at a conference somewhere and they happen to be there and you're doing a talk with some game magazine. You can have one of the actors there and they can talk about what a wonderful time they had in the game. Nominate them for rewards. It's PR for you and them. Create an IMDb page. It's more digital real estate with your words, with your game and their face next to it. It's just more exposure for your project. Here is a list of award schemes that include performance and voice acting. I will let you screenshot this so that you can use it on your next title. And hopefully you have screenshotted it. All right, so the takeaways from the talk is budget for your voice actors for the sessions and buyouts. Cast actors early on, don't always have to, but it's helpful. We appreciate that obviously you're busy. If you do drop us in last minute, just make sure we get all the information that we need in order to give you what you need for the project. Provide actors with information, and they will do their magic, their actor magic, and process it all and then perform it. Cast who you want, not who's convenient. You might happen to know a voice actor is very good, but you don't really want them. Don't cast them because they happen to live down the street. It's worth taking the time to find the right actors who you want. There is no such thing as too much communication. Communicate as much as you want with the actors to let them know what's going on. I've worked on projects that have been like, 18 months later, they've contacted me, said, hey, remember this game you worked on like a year and a half ago? Like, oh yeah, we want you to come back. It's like, I thought that project was canceled. I didn't know you were still doing it. NDAs, 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 NDAs. If you need them to know something, have them sign an NDA. It's easy. I don't mind. And be patient with your team and the voice actors. You might have been working with your team for years, and then suddenly you've got a new contractor, a voice actor coming in to do stuff, and it's like, okay, you should know everything about the game. Says, yeah, but I don't because you haven't told me anything. They are new to it. They're going to do their best to try and make it work for your project, but just be patient that they're still learning as much as they can, as quickly as they can about the project for the job. What else? Thank you. My name is Mike Bodie. I'm a voice actor. You are welcome to contact me or check me out at all of those wonderful, wonderful places. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mike, for the presentation. I really loved it, and I think we can move to the question chat now.
Cool.
So the first question is, what's your opinion on deepfake voice-over audio solutions becoming popular lately and affordable?
Deepfake audio solutions are useful for playback, for placeholder audio, but they will never ever replace a human being. Some of them can sound like a human person, realistically, but it will probably overtake the lower budget mobile market and lower budget indie games when people can't afford voices but they want them. But if you want an amazing performance, you will only be able to get that from a human. Those tools are useful for placeholder when you're trying to measure out cinematics and scenes and seeing if certain pieces of text will work in the environment. But at the end of the day, they will never be able to replicate what a live human person can do. Those tools have their place, but it won't replace a human.
Thanks for your answer. Next question is, how is the voice-over market doing? I heard that with music creators, it is quite overwhelmed, and it's hard to find a job in the field. With voiceover, it is probably even more difficult to land a job because not every game needs a voice acting.
So as far as the amount of voice actors, there are a lot of voice actors, but there are also a lot of bad voice actors. It's very easy to call yourself a voice actor But if you don't have the experience or the training or the equipment or the competence or the professionalism to make it a full-time career, that's going to show very quickly. It is difficult to find a job, but obviously, if you're good at your job, you're going to get those jobs. Um, there are a lot of people, whether they're musicians or streamers or YouTubers or whatever, they believe that it's easy to get into the business, and also, but that's not always the case. There are a lot of people doing it, but that doesn't stop me from doing it because I know I'm good at my job and I'm experienced and I got a good pedigree behind me. So as far as the voiceover market goes, there's a lot more work available. The work has increased dramatically. The amount of people wanting to do it has increased dramatically, but also the amount of people who are not good at it have increased dramatically. So it takes a lot of effort and work on the behalf of the new person to get themselves to a level where they can be competitive. So it's not an easy like you don't buy a microphone and then expect your career to go to the moon. Like it's not Dogecoin. Um, it requires a lot of work. I've been working as an actor for about 15 years, and it's taken me that long to get to the position that I'm at. I think a lot of people who get into voiceover expect that they'll make it in a year or two or work on something really cool, but that's not always the case.
Thanks, Mike. And the next question, is there any character you want to play as an actor?
Any particular character that exists?
Maybe character type.
Oh, character type. I'd love to play like heroic lead. I tend to always get cast as sort of secondary characters, NPCs, sort of bundles of like, okay, play Goblin number 2, now play Soldier number 1, and now play Merchant number 7. Okay, the Merchant dies now. Great. I'd love to play I'd love to play a lead in something that lasts throughout the entire game. I mean, obviously, there's the financial incentive that I'm working multiple sessions, and so I get paid for multiple hours. But to be able to have ownership of a character for a long period of time and be able to go through that character's journey and have that develop as time goes on is something I'd love to do. Like, it's great to play Soldier number 7 who goes, I've been shot in the chest. I need you to save me. All right. Thanks, hero. You're the best. It's like, that's great, but that character doesn't really have much of a journey. But having a character that you have their beginning, their middle, their end, or maybe there's a sequel, would be something I'd love to do. To have that kind of breadth of that character's development would be great.
Sensible answer. And probably the last one. Do you have your favorite phrase? If yes, might you say it using your favorite voice?
My favorite voice? Yes. Okay, hang on. Whoa, buddy! It's from a character I played in Dragon Quest Monster Battle Scanners, which is only available as an arcade game in Singapore and Southeast Asia. And I had to put on, what had happened was we had it was originally in Japanese, and we had all the Japanese text, but they didn't translate all of the sounds and stuff before the Japanese speaking began. So there was lots of like, so, and then the text would start, but we had to match the waveform. So it was like, right, okay, do you want me to just go saw again? They said, no, make something up. So I ended up having to just going, oh, buddy, here comes another attack. But I'd have to keep saying nonsense, like, oh boy, just to fill in this kind of like gibberish Japanese noise, which meant nothing, even in Japanese. But I had to fill in the waveform so that the Japanese waveform and the English waveform matched. So that was one of my favorite things to do, was to be like, oh, goodness me, here comes another attack. And the line is, here comes another attack, but I had to make up silly stuff.
Yes, I thought it was really fun. So if any of you have questions for the Mike, you can ask him in private messages, and we will be ending our session here. Thanks a lot again, Mike.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for coming along.